On Wednesday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, it's a little mixed bag of NHL news, including an NHL debut from number one overall draft pick Owen Power, a look into Drew Doughty's fantasy future, and a little bit of questioning of what the flip is Evgeni Malkin up to. Of course, diving into DFS and bets and feeding you what we do best, locks of the nights, and a little extra cash in your pocket. Let's ride!
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody, to your favorite and daily podcast for hockey fantasy. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Big Flip Livingstone and my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. Thank you so much, guys, for making us your first listen every single day. We really appreciate that love. Continue to smash the subscribe button, hit the follow button, drop those comments. Steele and I are a work in progress, baby, and there is a lot more content to come, so stay tuned. Monday to Friday for all the latest episodes from me and Steele. We are here to try and make you a little bit of loot every single day. And that's what we're going to try and do again today, Steele. Taking a look at the mini 4-game DFS and big-time betting board. You know I got some picks. That's what we do. Taking a look at a bunch of different games. But it's an exciting week in the NHL. Owen Power making his debut. Let's talk about that and his fantasy impact. Drew Doughty, another big injury for the LA Kings. That's going to deal a blow to their playoff chances. We think we're going to talk about that and his fantasy impact. And Evgeni Malkin taking a 4-game suspension at probably the worst time possible he could of the year. Steele, intrigued and excited to hear what you have to say. Big episode, big time bets coming up. But let's get into it. Owen Power, my friend, I'm intrigued to hear what you think about this. Buffalo Sabres blue liner. What does it mean for Buffalo? What does it mean for fantasy owners who might need to add a D-man with some, let's say, a very high ceiling?
Look, we're seeing a lot of teams doing this now, teams that have already been eliminated from the playoffs, the postseason this year, that they're trying to get some of their young guys into some of the games towards the end of the season, just get their feet moving, see how they play in the NHL. Yep. I'm very excited to see how Owen Power plays in his debut against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're doing this episode a little bit early on Tuesday, so we haven't seen him play yet, but I'm really excited to see what he has in store against one of these, what a team to do it against too, the Toronto Maple Leafs in your first NHL game ever. So very excited to see what he's capable of against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's played great so far throughout his entire, hockey career, playing with Michigan at the World Juniors as well. And the limited amount of games that he played because of COVID restrictions and stuff that happened, but he's a great hockey player. I'm looking forward to him play.
I think there's something exciting about this kid's game. He has, durable NHLer written all over him. Who knows what the career path goes? But a few things intrigue me with Owen Power. And first off, this is a guy that you definitely, a first overall pick, I don't care what position, he's a fantasy target that you need to keep your eye on. Dynasty-wise, for sure, at only 19 years old. But what really intrigues me about him is the opportunity he's going to have being a part of a young core in Buffalo. That's number one. But number two, you mentioned it. How great he's already looked on multiple international hockey platforms, Steele. World Juniors, World Championship, Olympics. He's looked solid on all three of those platforms and playing with men at most of those. And he's just a 17, 18-year-old kid, now 19. Mississauga boy gets to debut in Toronto. That's just a really cool storyline. He seems fired up, and he does seem to be a special player. I mentioned the core in Buffalo. I don't know what you think about that, Steele, but Darlene, Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Peyton Krebs, we've talked a lot about these. Those are all first-round draft picks. There's a lot of talent in Buffalo, and I think he has a really great opportunity to, cement himself on a blue line that needs a guy like him.
There is a lot of talent, but there's still a lot to improve on, especially in the goal crease for the Buffalo Sabres. A lot need to change with their bottom six forwards, but you're right. They have a lot of young talent right now. I'm really looking forward to see what kind of direction they go in the next couple of years, but it's going to take a while for them to be a legitimate playoff contending team.
True.
True. We won't get into that, but back to Owen Power, they really do need a goalie. A lot of teams need a starting goaltender out there, the Buffalo Sabres being one of them. And you mentioned about Owen Power's fantasy value, especially for dynasty leagues. I just looked at it today. He's already owned at 12% in Yahoo fantasy leagues, which is saying something that he's getting his NHL debut. He's already owned at 12%, a lot more than some, players that have been playing in the NHL for multiple years now. So that just kind of, highlights his talent with the Buffalo Sabres and, throughout his career.
Most definitely. There's a fantasy guy who's just starting out his career. Ceiling is very high. Another guy that we're going to talk about right now, totally different point in his career, but still worth a look in terms of breaking down what Drew Doughty's overall fantasy value is. 14-year career, all with the Kings. I want to point out that, yes, so wrist surgery is ending his season. He'll be done for the year. Kings are saying he's making a full recovery. He'll be back for next season. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, Steele, because he started off the season really great. But this is a significant injury for a guy who's going to be 33 years old. Yeah, 33 years old in December. Where do you put him in terms of the, because he used to be definitely a top 10 fantasy D-man.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds for Doughty? I'm interested.
I think the future is very high for Doughty. We know that he's capable of putting up 50 to 60 points in a season when he's healthy. He's been a very durable guy, but this has been a very unlucky year for him. He's only played 39 games, but he has 31 points in those 39 games. So we know he can be a productive guy. He's the heart and soul of this LA Kings team. He brings the fire every single game that he comes in the ice. And he's just had a little bit of, just some unlucky situations this year with the injuries, the COVID situations as well. It's tough for fantasy owners. It's tough for the LA Kings as they're holding on for that, third spot in their division. But I still have a lot of faith in this LA Kings team. They have a very, very easy schedule moving forward. I believe they're one of their last games. Their next game is against the Colorado Avalanche, I believe. I think we're going to get into that for DFS for the DFS segment, but their next game is against the Colorado Avalanche. That's the only game that is, a very, very tough opponent. The next 6 games, their last 6 remaining games in the season are against teams that have already been eliminated and are no contention for the postseason. So they have a very easy schedule. This is a huge blow for fantasy owners and the LA Kings organization, but I still have faith in this team to make the playoffs. And I think Drew Doughty is still a guy that you hold on to for dynasty leagues.
Yeah, they've had to get it done without Doughty for so long now that, yes, it's going to definitely be a hit for them down the stretch to not get him back. But realistically, they've had to get it done without him all season. But what I think the key takeaway is here is how key he is to the success of that blue line. Because let's be honest, I love me some Sean Durzi action, and he stepped up. But other than that, running Troy Stecher out there as much as they have to has clearly started to impact their overall standings, and they're sliding a little bit. I think you're right. I still think that this stretch run is a good one for them to probably still hold down a playoff spot. But at the end of the day, Drew Doughty, I think you're right. I think you still hold on to a guy like Drew Doughty, who clearly at the start of this season could still put almost a point per game player.
Yeah.
And aside from a really tough wrist injury and then surgery, I think it's clear that he still has some left in the tank. This is an elite D-man that I don't think, after the goaltending position, Steele, you and I both know it's hard to find too many stud blue liners that can play like Doughty can play. So I don't think you can pass on that. We're going to talk about Evgeni Malkin right around the break. We're going to talk about big-time bets and DFS targets. Don't sleep. That's coming up right now. But another thing that you can't sleep on, delicious food, which comes from where? HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. That includes farm fresh produce that arrives within a week, so you get the convenience without skimping on the quality. Skip the next trip to the grocery store. Save yourself the long time waiting in lines. Ensure you also don't waste any money on excess food with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Customize your favorite dishes with the new Hello Custom offerings by swapping out one protein for another or a side for another. Upgrade for a more luxurious experience, Steele, by adding a protein to a veggie meal. You can get as customized as you want with HelloFresh. That means more choices, more variety, and more meals tailored truly to you. Go to HelloFresh.com/locked on16 and use the promo code LOCK16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. I know Flip and I don't. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast from, just like this podcast right here. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, and once you do, you will get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. Flip, before we get to Evgeni Malkin, we were just talking about Owen Power. We were just talking about Drew Doughty.
Yes.
Another guy that is making some highlights in the news right now, Evgeni Malkin, suspended for 4 games for his cross-check on Mark Borowiecki from the Nashville Predators. What's your take on this? I'll speak after you, but I want to hear what your take is on this because I'm rather upset with the incident.
I think when I look at this play, Steele, also you got to understand a guy like Mark Borowiecki. This guy is a seasoned veteran and a well-respected player in the NHL. Yeah, sure, doesn't make the highlight reel, but this guy is a warrior, and I'm pretty sure a quick look at that guy's dental records, they know that he's had some problems with his mouth and his teeth.
Yeah.
And Malkin went straight for a dirty cheap shot right in the mouth. Borowiecki would clean his clock any day of the week. They drop it square, and Malkin knows that. Also, before I get too heated, he also got in a really dirty slash on Borowiecki right before he popped him in the mouth. So yet again, in my opinion, a boneheaded move by a big-time player on a team doing what? Sliding, lacking in secondary scoring. He's one of their only secondary scorers, and bang, you're out for 4 games. I don't know who those 4 games are against, but does it matter, Steele? That is a huge loss for the Penguins. I think it was a stupid play, and one that, honestly, if I was an NHL player on the Penguins, Gino, what are you thinking, man? That's like a 13-year veteran in there. That's a dirty play. Not to mention, the next time that these teams tangle, if it happens, Malkin better look out. Borowiecki is a beast.
Well, I don't think he was thinking this play, and there's no denying that Evgeni Malkin is a superstar in this league. He has been for pretty much his entire NHL career. He's averaged over a point per game throughout his entire career at this point. But for me, I think he's honestly one of the dirtiest players in the league. And I don't think that part of his game is highlighted enough because of how much skill he brings. But he's got to be one of the dirtiest players in the league. You know, I'm throwing him up there with Brad Marchand right now. Guys just making cheap shots. And you said it yourself. He got a good swing in on Mark Borowiecki before he, cross-checked him to the mouth. He does that so many times in all of these games. That's his only defense. He full-on Bryson DeChambeau swings his stick, using it as a weapon right on the hands. Every single time I watch Evgeni Malkin get into a scrum, a scuffle, a little bit of an argument with the opposition, every single time he's swinging his stick as a weapon, going for the hands, going for the knees, the shins, the back of the leg, whatever he can do to injure those players. And I'm honestly sick and tired of it. I think this honestly should be upwards of 8 games because he is a repeat offender, but he doesn't get suspended as often because of his skill set. I think he blatantly just a stupid play on his part. He's hurting his team right now. And you said it, the New York Rangers have passed them. The Washington Capitals are up on the rise trying to get that 3rd spot in the Metropolitan. Bonehead move.
That's just it too. Is like maybe, a couple of weeks back, sure, it's still a boneheaded move, but it doesn't hurt as much. My goodness, now with Washington breathing down their throat, that's a really tough I know it's Malkin. I know he's a leader in that room. He has cups. He's top 100 in the NHL all time. But that's one of those ones that he comes back into the room. And, if I'm sitting next to you, Steele, I'm going, the F is that guy doing to our team out there by pulling one of those moves and against a guy that, I respect in Borowiecki big time for playing with as much sandpaper as he plays. And it's just hard to see a guy hold his mouth bleeding like that when he already has dental issues. My goodness, what has that guy gone through in the last couple of days worth of dentistry work? 4 games is a joke, by the way. I'm with you. Yeah. Anyway, 4-game board tonight. Nice segue. Let's get right into the DFS selections. That's how we do it around here.
Well, there's only actually 3 games on the board for Wednesday night, but hey,
you know me in numbers.
Every time you're getting closer, Flip, the numbers will get there. You'll get there soon enough.
No, there's 4 games, bro.
There's 3.
Rangers, Flyers, Habs, Blue Jackets, Kraken, Jets, Kings, Avalanche. What date am I looking at here?
The Kraken game isn't showing up on my schedule right now. Maybe you're right. Maybe there's 4 games, but it's only 3. There's only 3 popping up on my app right now. So I'm just gonna go with my DFS selections that I've already gone with and
Please
totally
do, because
don't even regard.
NHL.com is letting me down in a big way here. Shocker.
All right. Hopefully we'll see after the episode who's right. But as of right now, I'm gonna go with 3 games. You'll go with 4. The first game I'm looking at is that Colorado LA Kings game, and like I mentioned, this is the toughest game for the LA Kings and their last 8 games remaining in the season. The one game that is against a playoff team, the rest are against teams already eliminated or not even in contention at this point. So that's the reason why I'm going with the top guys on the Colorado Avalanche. Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. I'm also going with Andre Burakovsky instead of Mikko Rantanen because Burakovsky is on that top line right now. And I'm saving my money for the second matchup I'm looking at for my DFS selections. But with Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, you're paying the premium because you're getting the top guys in the league and the top guys on the Colorado Avalanche. Those guys, for good reason, are going to be above $7,500, probably even towards $8,000, but they're just that good. I'm throwing Andre Burakovsky in there as a cheaper option because he's on the top line, but he doesn't have the same skill set as McKinnon and Rantanen. So Burakovsky probably around 4,000, maybe 3,500 if we're lucky. But that's what I'm going with because I'm saving a little dough for my second matchup of the night.
I like that. By the way, thanks a lot, NHL.com. For some reason, though, legit, they had that Seattle game in there. Good thing I didn't want to bet on that with a 10-foot pole. So there is only 3 games. My bad. Let's reel this back in here. But honestly, Steele, these are the games down the stretch. There's not many games left. The playoffs are looming. So you're going to hear a lot of the same kind of stuff from me because it's hard for me to back teams that have 0 to play against teams that, not even confirming top positioning, still need to get into the playoffs. So I'm going to be fading a lot of these teams down the stretch that have nothing to play for. Definitely going to be at least hammering the teams up front that you just mentioned: Colorado, Toronto, New York, Minnesota, the teams that have been working for us the last couple of weeks, because those are the toast teams in the league. New York Rangers, baby, going up against the Philadelphia Flyers. You're going to pay a premium for a lot of these guys, but I think this is going to be a very big night for that second line. Panarin, Strome, Kopp. These are the guys that I'm looking at. If you haven't blown your budget already, go with a couple of Rangers. Shesterkin in net. It might be Georgiev. Either way, I think this is a great spot for the Rangers, and you'll hear a lot about it in a couple of minutes from Big Time Bets.
Yeah, that's exactly my second. That's where I went with my second matchup as well. It's going to be Georgiev in net because, of course, the New York Rangers and Carolina Hurricanes played Tuesday night. So Shesterkin and Frederick Anderson in night on Tuesday. Georgiev going to get the start in that Wednesday matchup against the Philadelphia Flyers. This is the second matchup I'm looking at. I went with Georgiev. You know, he hasn't played great this year. He hasn't gotten a ton of starts, but he has 4 wins in his last 4 starts. So that's what matters to me. He's gotten the wins, even though he's letting a little bit more goals in than I'd like to see, still getting the dub. So there's points there. Excuse me. But you were highlighting the second line for the New York Rangers. I've done that in the past and they've been absolutely great, but I wanted to highlight that first line because I haven't talked about them pretty much at all this season. Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and how great has Frank Vatrano been since the New York Rangers acquired him before the trade deadline. Sure. I believe 9 points, 6 goals in the 13 games that he's played. Chris Kreider still scoring goals. Mika Zibanejad being the playmaker and highlight maker that he is for the New York Rangers as well. So either one of those lines, the second or the first one for the New York Rangers in this, both these teams, by the way, are playing the second of a back-to-back. The New York Rangers played Tuesday. The Philadelphia Flyers played Tuesday as well. Both of them have to travel back to Philadelphia for this game. So the traveling and, you know, the home ice advantage doesn't really mean much in this situation. New York Rangers all the way in this game, as well as New York Rangers first, second line. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, Nathan MacKinnon, Andre Burakovsky, and Cale Makar.
Love it. Love it, my friend. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Hey, We don't sleep on these heavy favorite teams. You might not get the odds for them when you're picking winners, but you can't go wrong DFS. You're going to pay the premium for them, but this is what you have to do. If you've already blown your budget, also maybe take a look into that Montreal Canadiens Columbus Blue Jackets game. Not for any goaltenders, but I see that being a high scoring one. Definitely one where you could find some value down the lineups. That's where else I would look, because I see that being a bad night for goaltenders. Even though Sam Montembeault was pretty good the other night, Jake Allen is out. Montreal is a mess again. Big time bets coming up.
Big time bets coming up, but I have to let everyone know about this amazing product, Built Bar. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate.
Ooh.
And you know me, I love me some chocolate, and these are awesome before or after you work out. Contains 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. They're absolutely delicious, and they have so many different flavors. Coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and there's many, many more. In fact, Built always comes out with new limited time flavors, like for this week, yellow chirps, brownie batter, raspberry cheesecake, and caramel almond delight. So check out Built.com and see what's new on their website. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, also including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. And once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. So thank you so much. So because of that, we're going to try and return the favor with our big time bets for Wednesday night. Flip, it seems like I just repeat myself every day, but I am in envy of you right now, absolutely killing it with the locks of the night, the big time bets. And I'm super disappointed with myself the last 2 weeks. It's been a struggle, but every single day I'm looking to bounce back. I want to see what you lead off with, because I might have to take some of your advice for this one.
I appreciate that, my friend. It is a journey. Lots more hockey to be played. The playoffs are coming. There's going to be some spots to make some money. The DFS targets are still hitting for you. So stay the course and let's just get this money, okay? We're going to get there for you. Trust me. Stay tuned. I'm keeping it simple, Steele. I have 3 picks. 2 are from one game and also my lock of the night, so I'll save those. But where I'm going first is Montreal Canadiens at Columbus Blue Jackets. I just mentioned it. Aside from the top line of Cole Caulfield, Rem Pitlick, and Nick Suzuki, there is not a ton to like with the Montreal Canadiens since Marty St. Louis has taken over. But if there's one thing, it's that line, it's that combination, and it's most definitely Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. There's reason for optimism in Montreal. You've heard me say it before. Exciting duo, playing well together. Suzuki has an assist in 8 of his last 13 games. It hit for me the other night. Watching these two play, it's almost like they're going to get theirs every single night, especially against the bad teams. Columbus has also looked downright awful, Steele. Thankfully, neither of us, I think, have touched them at all over the last couple of weeks. So there's a bullet dodged. But look, he had a great game. He has 2 points in 2 games against Columbus this year. He's looking great with Caulfield. Columbus just let 4 goals in by the Red Wings, and the Red Wings are a mess right now. I don't need to say too much more here. This is a great spot for, I know Montreal is struggling, but these 2 kids are going to continue to get theirs, especially playing with each other. Imagine, I know Rem Pitlick has been pretty good, but imagine if they had a third stud on that line. It would be unstoppable. They're already pretty close right now in terms of offense. Those 2 are clicking. Nick Suzuki, anytime assist. It hit for me the other night, and I'm going right back to the well, as you say. Nick Suzuki, anytime assist. That's my first pick of the night.
Yeah, those guys have been a lot better since Martin St. Louis has taken over behind the bench for the Montreal Canadiens. Can't go wrong with that pick, especially if it hit for you the other night. So I like the Nick Suzuki pick. He's been great. My first pick of the night, of course, I'm taking the Avalanche on the money line against the LA Kings. Avalanche, they're at home. Their weapons are still firing right now, even with all the injuries that they have. I'm going to play it safe a little bit, still take the Avalanche on the money line, and I'll just get straight to my next 2 picks as well with my lock of the night. Zibanejad has been absolutely fantastic. 3 assists, 4 points in his last 3 games. He's been feeding them. You're talking about Nick Suzuki being the playmaker and being an absolute stud on that first line.
Mhm.
So is Mika Zibanejad for the New York
Yes.
Rangers. I'm taking an anytime assist from Mika Zibanejad
Love it.
against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Love it.
And then my lock of the night as well, I'm taking the Rangers on the money line just because it's the second game of a back-to-back. Georgiev hasn't been great, but he's been getting the wins. So again, dialing it back just a little bit because of how bad I've been the last 2 weeks, but Rangers on the money line for the lock of the night.
I can totally appreciate that angle. I'm going to sweat it with you for the amount of odds that you're going to have to take for that money line, but that's okay because I think you're going to like my lock of the night very much, good sir, which I will give to you right after I tell you. The season that Artemi Panarin is having, I don't think is getting nearly enough love because of how great some solo efforts have been this year, and you and I have talked about it, from Draisaitl to McDavid to Matthews to Roman Josi, Cale Makar, Huberdeau.
Yeah, there we go.
So there's some amazing Johnny Gaudreau even. No one's talking about an 88-point season from Panarin. Basically nobody outside of New York, and I want to give him that love. 67 assists for a career high. He's only, I think his career high was 95 points, so he's close to a career high in points as well. And he has been amazing this year. So how about over his last 4 games, 8 points and red hot again, Steele? Give me Panarin over 1.5 points. I'm not just going anytime point. I'm saying he has a multi-point game because I did me some research here, and hang with me. How about 26 multi-point games for Panarin this year? That is a lot of big-time offensive performance from one of those players that I would absolutely love to have on my team. I love the way he plays. You've talked about how he can find guys in the parking lot without looking. Give me the 1.5 over anytime points for Panarin. That is not my lock of the night, though, which I think you will like. Give me the New York Rangers on the puck line. I'm feeling this one in a big bounce-back spot because they got beat by the Flyers 2 weeks ago. They blew it and lost in the shootout. I like the revenge angle for this, and let me hit you with 2 stats right quick before I sell it to you real good. Since that game, the Rangers have been lights out, winning 3 in a row, goal differential of 11-2, and I love these 2 numbers. The Rangers are a good road team at 23-13-2, and they also win a lot when they are the favorite, 29-11-4 as favorites this year. I love that number. I think even with Georgiev in there, even though you're making a great point about the second night of a back-to-back, which makes me a little nervous, going with the puck line just for you, my friend. Rangers, lock of the night by 1.5 or more. My lock of the night.
Flip, getting a little spicier than myself with it, but I love that you're hopping on the puck line. King right here. Puck line, money line. We're both, Flip's taking the puck line on the Rangers. I'm taking the money line on the Rangers. I like that you're highlighting Artemi Panarin, and, throw a tease out there. We might have to dive into a conversation about who's the best active Russian in the NHL right now. Panarin, Ovechkin, Kaprizov. We'll get to that maybe in the next couple of episodes.
Maybe tomorrow.
But thank you. We could do it possibly tomorrow.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick, but for not just hockey, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. So if you haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. And once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast and stay up to date with all the fantasy and NHL news. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.